Hi guys, welcome to this short lecture just talking to you about the research task I'm going to be setting for you, which is evaluating free schools and also evaluating the effects of academies and the role of privitisation within that framework. Just to give you an idea of the split of schools in the country, I know this data is from 2017, so it's a little bit out of date, but it does give you a rough picture. Free schools only really represent around about 7%, okay? And probably a little bit less than that because it's free schools, university, tech colleges and studio schools. Of those, the majority probably would be free schools. However, they do tend to have an impact where they are opened, so that's why I'd like you to research them. Only 31% of schools are now local authority schools. So they're the ones that report directly into the local authority, such as East Sussex East Sussex Local Authority. The majority of schools, over 50%, are academies, and you've got a mixture of academies not in a multi-academy trust and academies in a multi-academy trust. There's not a massive difference in terms of how they are funded. Both types will have been, both will have been funded via the government through the funding formula, so through the students walking through the door, and both will have private organisations helping run those academies. I would say the academies and multi-academy trust, they will be part of a big network of academies where there'll be lots of different schools that'll be part of the same academy network. One of our big local ones is ARC Academy Trust. They run most of the schools in and around Hastings and St Leonard's, for example. If you want to Google them, it's ARC Academy Trust. So yeah, they're a huge academy chain. National one with multinational connections. Academies not in a multi-academy trust would just be standalone academies, more likely to be, if you like, not sponsored or run perhaps with local businesses involved rather than multinational companies involved. Anyway. So your research task is, I really want you to focus on working collaboratively here and develop your research skills. So yeah, you will need to communicate with one another, and yet you can do that on the Google Classroom. So make sure you have access to your Google Classroom, and I will be creating a Google Slides presentation for you and your group members to work on. So you can communicate on there, for example, but there are other ways of communicating. I'll leave it up to you to figure it out. I will be able to see who does what on the presentation. I will be able to see who does most, who does hardly any. And I will obviously be feeding back to students if I do feel that, perhaps the workload hasn't been shared as evenly as it can be. And you will be presenting most likely the following lesson. So you've got one lesson of research and any additional time for that, perhaps sort of maybe homework time, if you want to, if you've got the time. And like I said, that you'll then be presenting the following lesson. In that lesson of presentations, obviously, you'll be feeding back to the rest of the class, but you'll also be listening about the research from the other side as well. So you have to be ready to take notes as well. All of you must make a contribution to the planning, and all of you I'm expecting to hear from in the delivery of the presentation as well. Don't panic too much. I have got all these links for you just to get started. So for free schools, for example, I've got a number of links there in the blue box. I'll share them with you separately because I know some of them go out of date. So they'll be in the main part of the task. And I would say that I have used our local free school, our local mainstream free school of Guildridge House as our kind of example free school to examine the impact it's had. There are other free schools in East Sussex, but they are specialist provision schools. So they work with students with learning difficulties or behavioural difficulties, for example. For the sake of this task, we're focusing on, if you like, mainstream in the sense that it's comparable with other mainstream secondary schools. The academies and privatisation debate, there is a lot more out there in terms of articles evaluating them, probably because there's a lot more academies. So I've got a number of articles there, both for and against them, a very short YouTube clip to watch as well about them. And for both school types, I've given you guys the link to the Ofsted, most recent Ofsted tables. So I'd be interested in you guys finding out how are they getting on according to Ofsted's, according to the league table positions. And if you are able to uncover Ofsted reports, that would also be interesting as well, I guess. Just in terms of terminology, when you click on these league table links, if you see a school as being a maintained school, that means it's a local authority maintained school. Okay, so like Heathfield is a maintained school because it's a local authority school. The ones that are academies are listed as academies. You'll find that, for example, Guildridge House is listed as an academy because that's the way its funding structure is set up. Okay, so some areas to cover in your presentations. I'd like, the questions are fairly similar on both sides, but there are a few different. So free schools, I'd like you to be clear about what they are, what are the pros, what are the cons, how are they doing in league tables and Ofsted, what has property prices got to do with it? So I've given you a Rightmove link. What impact are they having on other local authority schools and other academies in the area? What does religion have to do with it, okay, with free schools? And actually, why is this a concern? And what's the future of free schools? What does it look like in terms of funding, and are we going to get more of them? We're looking at academies and the role of privatisation via these academies. Again, what are they? What are the pros? What are the cons? How are they doing? League tables and Ofsteds. If you can find the data for how they were doing before academisation, that'd be fantastic. But don't panic if you can't. It can be a bit difficult to tease that out on the league table system. What are the issues with how academies use funding and their money in some cases? I'd be really interested if any of you can find out what are the issues with academies and exclusion rates as well. So when they exclude a student permanently, if you can track any of that down, that'd be great. What impact are academies having on the non-academy local authority schools? And again, what's the future of the academy school programme looking like? And again, depending on the research you managed to do around that. There are different political parties have different views on the Academy School programme, and different newspapers are pro and anti, so it's worth making sure you look at a range of different areas. So I'm looking forward to your presentations. I'm looking forward to seeing how you guys get on working collaboratively. If you need any extra support or any questions, I will be here throughout the lesson. Okay, so thank you for listening, and yep, I'll see you shortly.